Hey, what's up, guys? Carolina Jackpot coming at you August 21st, 2022. We got college football in 6 days, guys. Week 0 is coming fast and in a hurry. Got 7 games to pick, guys, that are not exactly breathtaking matchups. Don't have any top 25 teams playing, but we do have some short lines here. We do have some games that are going to tell us some stuff about some teams that a lot of people have questions about. And hey, it's college football, it's back, and we are ready to go. So the lines that I'm going to be discussing with these games today came straight from betnow.eu. You should go over to betnow.eu if you've never seen it before. Sign up, get yourself an account. It's very easy to do. If you choose to roll with them, it's easy to deposit money, and if you win, it's easy to get that money out. I've never had a problem with betnow.eu. Mybookie.ag is also a good one that I use sometimes. Thanks in advance, guys, over at MyBookie and BetNow for the free advertisement. Anyway, let's get into these games. Nebraska and Northwestern. These teams are going to go at it at 12:30 on Saturday afternoon in Dublin, Ireland, in a game that's going to be starting at 5:30 p.m. Ireland time. So I guess it's going to be getting dark in the second half there. I'm not really sure how that's going to work, but very interesting. And who knows how this trip across the Atlantic Ocean is going to affect these teams. And I'm not exactly sure when they're leaving to head over there. But thing about Northwestern is 3-9 last year straight up. Terrible year for Northwestern, actually, and 3-9 against the spread. Quarterbacks didn't perform very well, and they just weren't very good last year. Normally, under Pat Fitzgerald, who's been there now for 17 seasons, it's hard to believe that guy's been around that long, but he has. They've had a bounce-back year. Can they do it this year? I'm not sure. Nebraska, they finished up 3-9 last year as well, but I mean, it was not a typical 3-9 team. This team was 8-3-1 against the number, and had quite a few net close losses. People said they were the best 3-9 team in college football history and joked about it, but that may well be true. And that team, they're a legitimate title contender for the Big 10, West. Under Scott Frost, this team has kind of fallen short of expectations, kind of not covered the spread in opening games. In fact, he's never covered a spread in a season opening game. Now, a couple of years ago, their season opener actually got canceled, but the game that actually officially opened the season next week, they didn't cover the spread in that one either. So not quite sure what to think here on that note, but they do add in Casey Thompson, transfer quarterback from Texas, along with a new offensive coordinator. Casey Thompson, of course, is replacing Adrian Martinez, who transferred out. 13 points for Nebraska is kind of a head scratcher when you take into account their inability to perform in game ones. But I think that it's kind of do or die time for Scott Frost. I really do think that they are in that mode where he's not going to be retained if this team doesn't make a bowl game and make some significant strides in 2022. They also beat Northwestern last year 56-7, kind of in the middle of the season. It was one of their games, one of their 3 wins that wasn't close. So that shows you both these teams were 3-9, but I mean Northwestern got beat by Nebraska 56-7. So I'm going to go on ahead. I'm going to take Nebraska in this one to cover the spread. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in it. My confidence factor is about a 5, but I feel reasonably comfortable that the Cornhuskers will get this victory and will cover that 13 points. We have the UConn Huskies, 1-11 last year, hitting the road to take on Utah State. They're going up to Logan, Utah, in altitude to take on last year's Mountain West Conference champions. Utah State is a 27-point favorite in this game at home, and I don't think that's enough. As I said, UConn was a 1-11 last year, straight up. They were actually 6-6 against the spread. Didn't play in 2020. but they've been 7-41 the last 5 years. This team is averaging 26 points per game in their losses. They did bring in a new head coach in Jim Mora, who's got a lot of NFL experience. This is a very interesting hire. They added several transfer pieces. I think he'll get them on the right track. I think the team will be better. But last year, Utah State, you're talking 11-3, 9-4 against the spread. And they'll be contending in the Mountain West again this year. They bring back Logan Bonner, 3,600-yard passer last year. They're going to have to use some transfer portal wide receivers, though. Graduation did kind of deplete that core just a little bit. They do have a 900-yard rusher returning. And Calvin Tyler, Utah State might be looking ahead a little bit. Not sure. They go on the road next week to take on Alabama, and that's not going to be an easy test, obviously. And then UConn, this team, they don't have it any easier either. They got kind of an easy game the next week against Central Connecticut State, but their September is absolutely brutal. They got trips on the road to Michigan, and they got to go to North Carolina State. As I said, I expect them to make some improvements, but the altitude's going to be too much to deal with here. Utah State and Logan Bonner, these guys' ability to air the ball out is going to be too much for them. I'm also not real confident in UConn's ability to stop the run. Last year, they have some bad conditions to have to start games off again, right? Last year, their first game back in 2 years, they had to travel all the way across the country to Fresno, California to play in 100-degree heat against Fresno State. Got beat 45-0, absolutely got housed. Now they've got to go to Logan, Utah, which is God knows how many feet above sea level. It's just they're not going to be able to adjust to this altitude, and I think that Utah State will get an easy victory here. Go on ahead, do yourself a favor, and take Utah State to cover against those UConn Huskies in this particular matchup. Next one, we got Nevada going on the road to Las Cruces, New Mexico, to take on the New Mexico State Aggies, a team that is an independent, was actually joining, I believe, it is Conference USA in 2023. There's a lot of conference changing going on there. I haven't really gotten into all that. You know my feelings on that stuff. I'll let someone else do videos on those. Both these teams have new coaches. New Mexico State last year 2-10 straight up. However, were 7-5 against the spread. Nevada was 8-5 straight up and 8-5 against the spread. Carson Strong, the quarterback for Nevada, is gone now. New Mexico State has only 4 starters returning on their offense, but Nevada's only got 2. That's got to be one of the lower returning offensive production numbers in FCS. New Mexico State brings back 9 on defense. I think this is going to be the difference here in this ball game. Nevada's only bringing back 4 on theirs as well. So that's 2 on offense, 4 on defense for the Wolfpack. This game, I can see it being a lower scoring, high-type defensive battle. I think that Nevada will probably win the game. I think Nevada's probably a little bit more talented than what New Mexico State is, but 9.5 points when you've only got that many players returning on defense is not or offense, excuse me. You only got that many players returning on offense and replacing people with skill production. First game of the season, going to be kind of tough for them. Go on ahead and give me New Mexico State to cover as the home underdog here against the Wolfpack from Reno, Nevada. Conference USA matchup. Next up, we got North Texas going on the road, taking on UTEP. This game is a pick'em, and this is a true definition of a pick'em. It was hard for me to find an advantage here when trying to look at these two teams. Last year, North Texas 6-7 straight up, but 10-3 against the spread. They did win their last 5 games. UTEP was 7-6 straight up, 8-5 against the spread. They opened 6-1, and then they lost 5 of 6 down the stretch. Man, UTEP is actually due for a win in this series. They've lost the last 5 against the Mean Green. They've also lost 12 of the last 15 against them. Both returned the bulk of their production on offense. North Texas got to replace 6 starters on their defense. UTEP has an experienced and pretty deep defensive line there. That's the strength of their defense. And there's not really a home field advantage in the Sun Bowl for UTEP. Last year, in which, I mean, they had a pretty decent year. They only had one game where they had over 25 or 20,000 fans in the Sun Bowl, and that was the matchup against UTSA when both teams were like a one-loss team. So under head coach Dana Dimmel, UTEP, however, they've been 1-11, 1-11, 3-5 in the COVID year. Then last year they finished up at 7-6. I don't know. I mean, are they a little bit fraudulent? Maybe. I mean, that seems like an awful big jump to make in just 1 year. But he has recruited well. Gotten some decent transfers in there. You know, this, to me, this is another one where the law of averages just tells me that UTEP's due for a win here, and I think they get it. This one is about a 2 on my confidence scale. Well, actually, it's about a 5, right? Because it's a toss-up. This is a 5 on my confidence scale. I'm going to go on ahead, and I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to go with UTEP in this game. We're talking about confidence scales. I didn't tell you my confidence scale on that UConn-Utah State game. I'm about an 8, 8.5 on the confidence scale on that one. That they won't have any problems with UConn, that being Utah State. Wyoming hits the highway, going to Illinois, and Illinois is laying 10 at home against the Cowboys. Wyoming was 7-6 last year, 5-7 against the spread. They lost 6 of their last 8 games. It did win their bowl game against Kent State. Illinois was 5-7 last year, but 7-4-1 against the spread. And of course, everybody remembers their upset of Penn State last year in multiple overtimes. They also covered in several net close losses there against Iowa, against Purdue. This team, I think, was just a little bit better than what the record would indicate that they were. This was maybe a 7-win team. This was maybe a 7-win team anywhere else. Wyoming only returning 8 starters total on both sides of the ball. QB1 and QB2 both hit the transfer portal. That is not good. QB1 or RB1, excuse me, also hit the transfer portal. Not really quite sure what was going on there, but there's didn't have a coaching change. It's had the same head coach for 9 years. There's inexperience everywhere for the Wyoming Cowboys. The last time that a Power 5 team actually traveled to Wyoming for a season opener was the Mizzou Tigers back in 2019, and they knocked them off. However, this time, Wyoming's facing a Power 5 team in an opener, and they actually have to travel. So that advantage of the altitude and that stuff is kind of nullified for them. Illinois, I think, is going to be a sneaky good team in 2022. Their top 2 running backs return. Chase Brown, I think, is one of the more underrated players in the Big Ten. Those two combined for 1,500 yards. They look to be stronger everywhere. Not exactly at defensive back, but with Wyoming not really knowing who the quarterback is going to be or what he's going to be able to do, is that really going to be something that they're going to be able to take advantage of? Carolina Jackpot says not. I think Wyoming's going to have problems stopping the run game of Illinois. And Tommy DeVito, new quarterback for the Illini, who comes over from Syracuse via the transfer portal. They also have Arthur Sitkowski, who came via the transfer portal last year from Rutgers. Will spread the ball around, and I think they're just going to prove to be a little bit too much. Let me go on ahead and take the Fighting Illini to cover that 10 against Wyoming, and this is reasonable 7.5 on the confidence scale. We got Charlotte 49ers and Coach Will Healy going on the road, taking on Willie Taggart's Florida Atlantic Owls in Boca Raton. Florida Atlantic is laying 7.5 at home. Florida Atlantic last year, 5-7 straight up, 4-7-1 against the spread. Charlotte, 5-7 last year straight up, 4-6-2 against the spread. Both these teams return 8 starters on offense and 6 on defense. So you'd think they're pretty evenly matched. Last year, Florida Atlantic beat Charlotte 38-9 in October in Charlotte. So there's something to be said for that. Chris Reynolds returns as quarterback for the 49ers, and he has 2 running backs coming back that combined for over 1,100 yards last year. Their receiving core adds a couple of transfers there. Offensive line needs a little bit of experience. Their offensive line only has 45 combined starts, even though they're returning 3 starters. They don't have a lot of experience there. They gave up almost 500 yards a game in conference last year, defensively as well, which is not where you want to be. At Florida Atlantic, returned N'Kosi Perry at quarterback. Everybody knows him, the former Miami QB. Also, running back Johnny Ford is a tough, hard runner. Gained about 800 yards last year. He's banged up a little bit. Had he not been, he probably could have gotten over the 1,000-yard mark. They've upgraded in their receiving talent there through the transfer portal and that offensive line's experience. 145 starts between these guys. So if you just look at it from a record standpoint, if you look at it from a returning starter standpoint, you're like, this is going to be a toss-up. But to me, overall, Florida Atlantic looks to be a lot more experienced, look to be a lot tougher on the lines of scrimmage. So I'm going to go on ahead and take those Florida Atlantic Owls. I don't think I might have said Florida State. Those Florida Atlantic Owls at home to cover that 7.5 against Charlotte. This one is a little bit lower. I'd probably put this one about a 6 on the confidence scale. Give me Florida Atlantic. And the final game of the slate, 10:30 p.m. over on CBS Sports Network. We got the Vanderbilt Commodores going on the road to Hawaii, going over to the island. Vandy is laying 6.5 on the island as the road. They'll be playing this game in the TC Ching Athletic Complex, 9,000-seat stadium. As you know, the Aloha Stadium, where Hawaii has played for years and years, is kind of rotting from the inside out. It's not a very good situation over there. Apparently, they don't have a place, or I guess maybe the funding, to build a new stadium. So it's a bad situation. But you know, I should throw this tweet in here somewhere as a link. But one of the Hawaii staffers said that Vanderbilt just doesn't know what they're going to get themselves into. Said there that 9,000 people is going to sound like 90,000 people. Guess what, Hawaii staffer? Vanderbilt's played in front of 9,000 people before. The more you know. Hawaii was 6-7 last year, 5-7-1 against the spread. The Commodores were 2-10 last year, 6-6 against the spread. They did cover 5 of their last 6 games down the stretch, and played a lot better. They were 36-point underdogs at Ole Miss, and I think only ended up losing the game by like 14 points. I'm not saying that I'm high on Vanderbilt, but I think that Clark Lee has them headed in a positive direction. I've defended Derek Mason, the former coach, on this channel plenty of times, and I liked Derek Mason as a coach, but I think that Clark Lee's doing some good stuff there, and I think Vanderbilt may surprise a couple of folks this year. If you'll remember last year, as far as traveling, I don't necessarily know that this is going to hurt Vanderbilt. Last year, they went to some altitude, went to Fort Collins, Colorado, took on Colorado State as a 7-point road underdog and actually won. So I have no doubt that they're road warriors and that this is really not going to have an effect on them. Last time Hawaii opened with a Power 5 team at home, they upset Arizona in the 2019 season opener as an 11-point home underdog. That was when they had Cole McDonald as starting quarterback. If anybody will remember that one, I said that he looked like a dirty Trevor Lawrence. But that has nothing to do with this year's game. Vanderbilt returned 7 starters on both sides of the ball. The quarterbacks, Mike Wright, who took over and played the most of the second half of last season. And they also have quarterback Ken Seals. Ken Seals is more of the downfield threat. Guy got to get his interception numbers down a little bit. Mike Wright can run around and throw the ball a little bit, so he's probably going to be tabbed as the starter. They returned 2 capable running backs in Rocco Griffin, Rocco carried the rock last year for most of the season, and Raekwon, who just goes by Ray Davis, who's a player who's a transfer last year. He was out for the year after just a couple of games. Both those guys are going to be very formidable this year. Raekwon Davis back in full form, looks real good in camp from what I understand. Their defensive line is kind of a bit concerning because of lack of depth there. However, their linebackers and defensive backs look pretty solid. Are they SEC solid? No. And, Vanderbilt is going to finish in last place in the SEC East again this year. Probably won't win an SEC game. If they do, it'll be a big upset. But I do think they're headed in the right direction. Hawaii last year was able to stop the run. They only returned 2 starters on that side of the ball this year. Only have 4 coming back on offense. So new head coach Timmy Chang, if you remember, Timmy Chang was a record-setting quarterback there at Hawaii back in the early 2000s. He's going to have a tough go of it this year. I think Vanderbilt's going to just be able to run the ball down Hawaii's throat, and they're just going to be able to wear down what is going to be a very depleted team. 6.5, I don't believe is quite enough points. I think Vanderbilt wins this game by 10 points plus. So going ahead and give me the Commodores there. And I put this one at about an 8 on the Carolina Jackpot confidence scale. All right, guys, well, those are the Week 0 picks against the spread. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit it with a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the Carolina Jackpot channel. Make sure you click the link in the description box below and sign up for our Callaway's College Football Pick'em Challenge, sponsored by the Rob and Kale Show. $20 to get in. You get action all year long. We have a lot of fun here, and we will give away a huge pot of dough at the end of the season to the winner. If you have any questions about it, the contact information is there as well. You can feel free to message me or my podcast partner, Rob Sanders. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. I will see y'all later. Peace, and I'm out.